Good morning, and thank you everyone for joining us today for this presentation, part of our series of Kerby Centre's Health and Wellness, Financial Management, Information and Entertainment series. We're very pleased that you've joined us today. And before we begin, as we gather here, it's vital we also remember the peoples who've gathered here for millennia. This is the Treaty 7 land of the Indigenous peoples of Southern Alberta, the Blackfoot Nations of 𝐂𝐡𝐚𝐩𝐿, 𝐂𝐡𝐚𝐩𝐭𝐞𝐫𝐬, the Tsuut'ina First Nation, the Stoney Nakoda Nations of 𝐵𝑡𝐴𝐴𝐻𝑖, Bearspaw, and Wesley, and the historic home of the Northwest Métis and Métis Nation of Alberta Region 3. It is with the goal of reconciliation that we acknowledge the land on which we gather, and we thank the elders of these nations for their timeless contributions to this land. And again, welcome, and thank you all very much for joining us for this very special presentation today. It's been a tough year and particularly difficult financially for many. We can all use a little help in getting our financial manners on a more productive path and to evaluate our debt load and to figure out how to take charge and give ourselves a healthy financial future. Today, we're fortunate to have Svetlana Mamaeva of FINPOWERED joining us. Svetlana is a first-generation Canadian who is currently working in the field of business technology. Having been born and raised in Moldova, one of the least developed countries in Europe, she was determined from a young age to not be held back by circumstances. She moved to Canada to pursue her education and graduated with an honors degree in finance from the Schulich School of Business at York University. Led by her interest in this field, Svetlana spent over 2 years working in personal banking, where she earned the top 10% in Canada award for her performance. Svetlana's dream is to help women across the world gain financial empowerment. As a result of COVID-19 pandemic, Svetlana realized that people were facing many financial difficulties. So she decided to use her skills as a business graduate to create a platform to lend support. As her Beauty with a Purpose project, Miss World Canada 2020, Svetlana used her academic and professional experience to design a free financial literacy program. The FINPOWERED workshops are versatile and easy to understand, so people who have no background in finance can easily relate to the concepts and apply them to everyday life. Svetlana, thank you so much for joining us today. What are some of the biggest hurdles we have in trying to maintain good financial balance, and how can we set ourselves up for a healthier financial future?
Hello, first of all, thank you so much for such an introduction. I hope to make this as useful as possible for everyone attending, and thank you so much for your attention. Of course, like you said, there are many challenges in the pandemic. First of all, many people, their stream of income is not as stable as it used to be. There are things that could happen that are absolutely unpredictable. Many people are struggling with their debt payments, with their savings in these difficult times. So my goal is to provide as many useful recommendations as I can, just drawing from my academic experience and from my professional experience working at the bank as well. So I'll just start sharing my slides. Are you able to see them?
Yes.
Perfect. So let's get right into it. So here's more introduction about me. I promise to make it very quick. So like we already said, I'm a first-generation Canadian. I moved to Canada for education and graduated with a degree in finance about 3 years ago. While I was a student, I was also working in personal banking, and I received an award. But most importantly, I've seen like hundreds and thousands of people and what they're doing, what's working, what's not working for them, and included all these recommendations in this presentation, because many times, you know, at the bank, there's pressure on you to, you know, make sales, to like keep in mind the goals of the business. And of course, many times it's just so overwhelming, so many clients, you don't necessarily have the time to, you know, sit with every person and, you know, kind of like explain to them. But I thought there's just so much information that people can benefit from if I could share it through my platform, FINPOWERED, which is something I've been doing for maybe close to a year now. And like we already said, this is my project for Miss World. This was my project for Miss World Canada and now for Miss World, where I'm going to be representing Canada in December of this year. So I'm very excited about that. Okay, so let's get right into it. So first part is tackling your debt like a finance professional. And the most important step here, the first step, is to identify debts. And this seems like an easy and obvious step, but many times, especially for, for people who maybe have a little bit less of a financial background or maybe even newcomers. Like, for example, yesterday I was doing a workshop for an immigration center, and many people ask me, should we open more, credit cards to build our credit score, to have some sort of credit history going on? But the problem with that is you don't want to have too many cards either, because that way it's more difficult for you to manage what you have, and sometimes you wouldn't even know all the credits that you have opened. So the most important step is to know what they are, and for each one to list total amount you owe, minimum monthly payment, and interest rate. And now we're going to see why is that important. So as you may already know, not all debts are the same. So for example, things like a personal line of credit would have a much lower interest rate than, say, credit cards or even payday loans that usually have huge interest rates. And here it's really important to list your debts from the highest interest rate to the lowest. And why do we care about that? Because of course you don't want to carry unreasonable interest payments for a long time. You would want to prioritize the most expensive ones. So for example, paydays could go up to like 40 and sometimes even 50% interest. That's a crazy amount of interest that they're charging just to keep themselves safe and to overcompensate for the risks that they're taking. And of course with credit cards as well. And you know how sometimes that small little print that no one ever reads would say if you miss 2 credit card payments, your interest rate goes even higher. So it's extremely important to keep those things in mind. And of course, even though you want to focus on most expensive debt first, you want to cover at least minimum payments on all your debt. And if you can, just adding like even $5 on top of the minimum payment is already something that would benefit your credit score and would help to build your credit. Here are some notes on late payments. So first, for example, if you have certain bills that are the same amount or roughly the same every month, and you don't really need to analyze, investigate, and call your phone company to fight them about your bill, if it's more or less the same every month, then you could just take advantage of automatic payments. That way you don't have late fees, you don't have any headache. But of course, this would not apply to every single bill because sometimes we do want to see and assess our bills before we pay them. If you can't afford the payment, from doing over a dozen workshops, I was surprised how many people ask me, I couldn't afford my visa payments, so I just left it sitting for a year or 2 years. And they ask me, do you think I should just leave it or should I try to pay it? And first of all, like we said, that interest rate, interest accumulates like crazy, and you don't want to leave it there because you will essentially at one point it will come after you, but the magnitude of it would be much bigger. So of course, if you can't make a payment, don't just put it aside. Try to call the vendor, try to set up some kind of arrangement so they could break it down for you into smaller payments that you could make over time instead of just kind of giving it up completely. And of course, just like I already mentioned, missing credit card payments results in not only interest rates, but also in fees. And of course, keep in mind that when you use your credit card for different purchases and when you would money from your credit card, the interest rate would be different. And I don't know if any of you do this, maybe this would help someone. But for example, a lot of my family still lives back home, and sometimes I would use my credit card to make, like Western Union or any other type of transfers overseas. And something that I personally didn't know and just recently found out, that actually when you do that from your credit card, that on top of that, you also get charged as if it was like a cash transaction. So you also get a fee subtracted for that. So I don't know if any of you do this, but maybe it could be helpful to you as well. So next, honestly, even if you forgot everything from this presentation, and only wanted to take away one thing, then I would really, really recommend that you review your statements. And not necessarily like you don't need to go to the bank and ask for statements. Many people these days use online banking, so that's very easy. At the end of each month, just take maybe 2-5 minutes to quickly scroll through your transactions for that month. And even though we all think, oh, like I'm in charge of this, I know exactly what's going on. Like if you actually consciously set aside some time to do this, you would be surprised at the things that you see. And I was super surprised at the things I saw when I was working at the bank. So many times people wouldn't look, and some like the things that you can uncover that are easily preventable are just surprising. So for example, I've seen people, for example, your account only allows 12 transactions, but you didn't know that and you used it a whole bunch of times, and you ended up with a crazy monthly fee that you didn't notice 1 month, you didn't notice for 2 months, and then it keeps adding up, and at the end of the year or even longer, you would be surprised at how much money you could have saved just if you took a moment to look. Or another one, for example, if your overdraft is set up to charge you a certain fee every single time you use it, as opposed to a fixed monthly fee. Maybe you didn't know, used it a whole bunch of times, and then you have $50 in overdraft fees. So simple things like that, or not necessarily just for the fees. Also, maybe you subscribed for something, I don't know, months and years back, and at that time you felt like it was the most necessary and useful thing in the world, but then you completely forgot it existed, but you still keep getting charged for it. Another thing that from my workshops, people would like message me after or email me and tell me, oh, I did what you said, and then I found out I was subscribed to Amazon Canada and Amazon US and didn't know about this. So simple things like that just takes 2 minutes to look and to verify transactions. And of course, this would stop small things from becoming big things. Maybe if you had like extra $5-10 one time, not a big deal, but if it was accumulating there for months and years, different story. Also, it's useful to look for any unauthorized charges. And of course, when you check your transactions, right away you see areas where maybe you can cut back on spending a little bit, or right away you see the full picture and become aware. And like we know with many things in life, unless you're aware of something, unless you know the problem is there, you would never change it. So the first step is to look and see. So I would really recommend this for you guys. If anyone uncovers anything interesting, email me. Understand your accounts to maximize their benefits. Just like we talked about analyzing the list of all your open credits and debts, the same goes for using like different bank accounts, because each account usually has a fee and a reward. And it's really important to educate yourself on the basic features of each account that you have, because like I said, when you come into the bank, people usually, they're kind of like there's pressure on the visas for checking for savings accounts, and they don't always have the time to really educate you on what the basic features. Maybe you feel like you don't really put that extra effort to ask, but I would highly recommend it, because of course, all salespeople are educated and knowledgeable on what those features are and could easily tell you. Or you can even ask for, like a small booklet that would have different options and different features. So that way, you know exactly what you're paying for and what you're going to return. Because if you don't know what the rewards are, you would never use them. If what the fees are, like I said, you can really go over it. You can something that maybe you're just not aware of that would result in even more money that you spend where you don't necessarily need to spend it. And of course, these days, larger banks branch into different divisions that would offer no fees. So for example, Tangerine Financial, excuse me. And of course, there are rewards and disadvantages of that as well, because, for example, some prefer to physically go into the branch and to do their transactions, to have that one-on-one interaction with a teller. But just from being one of those tellers, I want to tell you, even large banks that we kind of all see like in that traditional view as customer-teller interaction, even away from that. So for example, teller, one of the things scored on performance was one of the criteria was how many people we have to take machine to show them how to use it without coming to the teller. So imagine there is a lineup of people standing and waiting for me to serve them, and I have to come to them and say, oh, can I take you to the machine and show you how to do it yourself? And of course, people would get annoyed sometimes when there's only, and of course, not like I came up with that, but more and more banks are trying to move and actually closing a lot of locations. So if you don't want to choose a no fee account just because you think, the branches would be forever, just giving you a bit of a background on that. And like I said, don't be afraid to ask your bank for more information, and always keep interest in mind, because like I said, their interest is to open accounts. If you're approved, they would open a whole bunch, especially if an immigrant. For me, who is an immigrant myself, it was almost like a little disturbing how sometimes they would like prefer and like almost attack a poor client like coming in who is an immigrant, who's maybe a little bit not naive, but just not like knowledgeable about the system in Canada. It was exactly the same. So like I said, don't be afraid to ask for more information. Don't be put your interest, because they are taking care of their interests already. So let's talk a bit about getting into savings mindset. So here I like to say that starting to save is like going on a diet. It's important to start small and be realistic, because all of us want to be super ambitious and set some kind of unrealistic goal in mind. But then when we're not able to stick to it, the whole point of diminishes. Something that I recommend is to automate your saving transfers. Like I said, for bills, maybe it will work and it will not, depending on the vendor. But with savings, I highly recommend it, because usually we say, oh, like I'll take care of my expenses, of my monthly bills, and what's left, like some portion of it, I will put into my savings. But I like to say, pay yourself first. You would know more or less what your expenses would be for the month. And usually you know roughly what's left. If you pay yourself first, and if you make it automatic, then you kind of right away, you know exactly what's left and you're in your budget, because many times when we have that extra amount of money, we're more tempted to find ways to spend it, But if right away it went into your savings, you have what you have and you kind of deal with that, then it's a different story. And of course, it doesn't need to be crazy amount that you can't keep up with. Just even like $50, $100, as much as you can, it would really build over time. And before you know it, you have a nice, good amount sitting in your savings. And something that is very useful is to make the date of transfer match your payday, or if you're getting some kind of even government support. So just to kind of align with when the payments are coming in, so it right away it could move into your automated saving account. Build your emergency fund, so which is usually 3 to 6 months of your expenses. And of course, in COVID, all of us noticed how things could happen overnight, how things can change so drastically, and we could never predict or expect that would happen, and how many people lost their jobs, and things like that could happen in life. So it's really important to have some sort of safety net for yourself. 3 to 6 months would be ideal. So in case if something does happen, you have some kind of, like I said, safety net to cover you. And now that we're all sitting at home and there are not that many things we can do to entertain ourselves, I think online shopping became a little bit more popular maybe than it used to be. So here I'm sharing some simple ways to manage it and to kind of take charge of it. That would give some easy ways to save. So first, I would recommend giving yourself a 1-day cooling off period when tempted to click buy. And it doesn't necessarily need to be 1 day. It can be any amount that you choose for yourself. So for example, for me, a bit of a problem was getting things from Amazon. So I would think, oh, I need this, and right away I would order it. And of course, all these stores make it so easy for you. Your card information is stored there, your address is stored there. You click to things, and it's already they already have your money, right? And maybe that way you don't even realize how much you're spending. So for me, I said to myself, okay, Friday is my Amazon day. if I want something on Monday or Tuesday, if it's not an emergency, I'm going to think about it on Friday. And, many times Friday came and I realized that thing I wanted on Monday or Tuesday was not really not necessary anymore. And I think we can all agree there are times like that in our life. Think twice about sales. So again, a lot of these places, stores, vendors, they want to make it seem like an amazing, perfect deal for you. They would take that old price, cross it, put the new price, and many times that new price is what the old price should be to begin with. But just don't fall into that trap and ask yourself, if this thing was not on sale, would I still buy it? Like, is it something that I truly need, or am I just excited to see a supposedly amazing deal? And of course, even if it is on sale, it's really beneficial to, and I'm jumping a little bit into point 4 here, to explore your options before you buy. Maybe you check a different website, a different place, and the thing that you see on sale would be even cheaper there. And going back to point number 3, delete your card number from online shopping accounts. And for me, for example, if that information is already saved, or if I have, usually I would keep like my credit card in the little pocket attached to my phone. You want something, you're like right away, impulse decision, and everything's ready, available for you, and you buy it. But honestly, there were times when my credit card was not around and I thought, okay, I'll do it later. And then you kind of save yourself a few dollars because you give yourself more time to think about it, to decide, do I truly need it? And that way you can make a more, educated decision without it being like based on an impulse. And number 5, aside from shopping and doing things, a lot of us maybe have subscriptions or memberships, like I mentioned before, that maybe we forgot about, maybe we subscribed for months and years ago and they're not really relevant anymore. So that's also an easy way to save, just to quickly look through your transactions, quickly look through your memberships and see, like reassess what you still need and what you don't. Okay, here are some budgeting tips for you guys. So reviewing your spending habits, it's very important. Like I said, checking your transactions would help a lot with that. A budget every month before the month begins, because more or less we would know what our bills are for the month. And of course, it would not be perfect, but generally we would have an idea of what it would be. Be realistic and give yourself grace, just like with savings, just like with dieting. Try to stick to the plan, but if it doesn't work perfectly, pick yourself up and just continue going, and adjust your budget to emphasize debt payoff. Again, like we discussed before, of course, a lot of us want to save, a lot of us want to invest things, but I'm sure all of us know that when you save, an interest rate is this big, and when you borrow, it's this big. And of course, if you have a lot of debt, saving is really important, and you still try to include it in your finances, but try to emphasize debt payoff as well. And actually, on my workshop yesterday, someone asked me what are some, tools they could use for budgeting. Honestly, it doesn't need to be anything fancy. Like even an Excel file would do, or even people who prefer pen and paper. And if you're more technologically savvy, there are a lot of different, even free, like apps and websites that you can do it online. So it's all available to you. And here I'm including a little bonus section. 3 things that bank tellers aren't telling you. And because I was one, I'm gonna tell you everything. So first, they can waive fees. And honestly, this is something I didn't know before I started working there. So, I'm sure at least once all of us had that, like maybe a bank charge that was maybe too high, or like maybe a non-sufficient funds fee when you didn't have enough money and pre-authorized payment came, and then on top of that, you're getting charged $45. And a lot of us would just kind of notice it and be sad about it, and maybe some would go and try to fight it. But actually, I wanted to share with you that bank tellers can waive fees for up to $100 to $200, and it's so easy for them to do it. They don't even need to ask like their manager's permission. Of course, in the system, there's like a record of how many times they've done it for you, so you can't like really go every day and ask for it. But if it was a 1-time, 2-time scenario, even 3 times, all you have to do is ask nicely, and they can easily do it for you. It doesn't cost them anything. It doesn't take anything away from them. So second, they create a sense of urgency for you to get banking products. So for example, you get reauthorized for something. And of course, they would say, congratulations, this is like the best thing that ever happened to you. You got pre-approved for something that you may or may not need. And just like I said before, with stores, how we make an impulse decision without really thinking it through. And they try to minimize the number of steps before you click buy, before you give your money away. Same thing here. They would kind of create a sense of urgency that you have to make a decision right now. Here's the paper to sign, like kind of decide right now. And of course, maybe you can be caught off guard. Maybe in the moment, it could seem like a good solution for you. Maybe it's something that you actually need, who knows? But many times, if you still need time to think about it, like you can easily ask them, when will the offer expire? A lot of times, you still have sufficient time to make a decision, to think about it. Again, this is your time to ask about different features, different rewards and fees that are associated with this offer that you're getting. So again, like you can be in control of the situation and don't fall into the trap that it's urgent and a decision needs to be made immediately. And my last point is that mistakes are very, very, very common, and sometimes they cannot be found. And when I was a teller, I was also a student. So usually I would work 12 to 8, that was my shift. And of course, I was dreading coming home and still doing a whole bunch of homework. And I knew I still had like a long night, but you know what? That shift never ended at 8. And we actually had to stay much longer, many, many times, because someone made a mistake. I made a mistake, because when you're working as a bank teller, you have so many people, coming through you through the day, and so many transactions you have to do. And even if you've been doing this job for 20 years and you know exactly what you're doing, like mistakes are so common. Someone could yell at you, like an angry customer could kind of get you off track. Maybe your manager is upset with you. Maybe something is going on with you today. I don't know. Like there are so many different things that could get you sidetracked. And even if you go to the bank and you say, oh, this sweet lady helped me for the past 10 years, she knows exactly what she's doing, don't fall into that trap. And here's what I would suggest to make sure you don't become a victim of that. At the end, they always ask you, well, would you like your receipt? So many times people would say, oh, no, it's okay, I'll just check on my phone later or something like that. You know what? Don't rush. Take that extra 1 minute to get your receipt and to just quickly look through everything you've done and to make sure that it's exactly what you wanted to do. So some things that are very common, for example, you want to deposit, I don't know, for example, $520, and by accident, they would enter as $250. And you can imagine how difficult it would be to allocate at the end of the day that mistake. And of course, you don't want to suffer from that. So just quickly look at that. Or for example, another very, very common one, you ask them to pay a bill, for example, I don't know, Rogers bill, or I don't know what vendors you have. But for example, they would go into the system, they would say a whole list of bills that they have registered under your name. And super common mistake, they would accidentally click on the wrong one and pay the correct amount that you said, but to the wrong thing. And then go figure where it went, how to get it back. But if you see it right away on the spot, it's very easy to correct. But once your payment already went to the vendor, different story. And also, this point was not included here, but I just thought of it right now to quickly mention to you guys. So usually when you make a payment at the bank, so for example, I don't know, you're paying for your electricity, it takes about 3 days to get from the bank to the vendor. So if you're coming on your last day and you think, oh, I'm good before the due date, like that's not how it works. Just try to give yourself a few days beforehand to avoid any fees or anything like that. And of course, if you have it set up for automatic payments, that takes care of itself. And that's it. And here's my time for Q&A to answer your questions. I hope this was useful for you guys.
Well, I got lots of great tips out of that as well. Do you want to end your screen share and then we can ask people if they would like to ask some questions?
And also, if anyone wants to, and I'm sorry if I was going too quick, I always try to tell myself to slow down, but then I get a bit nervous and forget.
And it's always,
but if anyone wants,
it's always disconcerting because you can't see your audience either. So,
yes. So I just wanted to say, if anyone wants to have access to my slides or anything like that, I'm happy to share them. so you can maybe take some notes, or so you have it for your reference if you need it.
Sure, absolutely. If you would like to share that with me, I think you may have given me that initially when we first met. Then what I'll do is when we advise people that the recording is ready, I usually send out the handouts as well, so I can make sure that I send that out. And does it have your contact on it, or would you like people to contact you for further information?
My contact is not there, but I'm happy to share it. If you guys have questions, you can reach out to me. Or, I'm always looking for, more opportunities to run my free workshops. So if you know of anyone who might need it, like even if it's a small shelter or small organization, it doesn't need to be 100 people. I'm always willing to do it. So I'm happy to share my information.
If you're okay with it, then I'll add your email address to the information, the handouts, and the recording link. And that if anybody has any further inquiries, or there you go. Thank you. Svetlana has shown that chat.
Missed my email. It's .ca. Sorry, guys.
And I'll reiterate it again when I send it out. And someone had raised a hand, and I just thought that we might be able to accommodate. Hang on one second here.
Someone said, you mean I got dressed for no reason? No, it's your time to be on camera and show your outfit, please.
Yeah, no, and unfortunately it popped up, but it's not there any longer. If you have questions, please, by all means, feel free to put them in Q&A or chat. Svetlana, I can just ask you the questions here if you like. Maureen, since we're an older audience, I suggest we should know that if one spouse dies, the joint account will likely be closed and a new one opened in the surviving spouse's name. This can be quite disconcerting. Do you have any information on that, Svetlana?
Sorry, I missed the first part. So if one of the spouses died and it's a joint account?
Yes, yeah. If a spouse passes away, people may not realize that if they have a joint account, if spouses have a joint account, that it might be closed and then a new one opened in just the surviving spouse's name. Some people may not be aware that that may be the case, and should be aware of that.
Ah, interesting. So to be honest with you, I haven't dealt with a lot of those situations in my experience, but if you are listed as the second user in the account, then there should be no reason why you shouldn't be able to access the account. And of course, it's something that is very important to keep in mind, because just like I said, a lot of people don't even know all the debts they have. Some people don't know what accounts they have. And, sometimes one thing is if there's some money, left and then you have access to it, but it could also be the other way. You can be, in negative 5,000 on that account, overdrafted, and that would become your responsibility. So everything that you sign up for, everything that maybe, I don't know, one of your kids wants to open, for example, a line of credit and wants you to co-sign for that, just always be mindful of those things, because you're also responsible for that if you're, putting your signature there. And also someone is asking here, if I talked about line of credit, my internet went off. So about the line of credit, I want to share something that I think maybe a lot of you could benefit from. When I worked at the bank, I saw that a lot of people who had, a lot of credit card debt that they were struggling to repay, if the bank approved them, they would open a line of credit, which usually has a much, much lower interest rate, and then just transfer their owing balance from credit card to that line of credit. Because, like I said, credit card can be up to 20% even more of your interest, and line of credit is usually much lower. So of course you're saving yourself those payments there. So if it's something that you're concerned about, if it's something that your bank would approve you for, this is the time when I actually truly believe it's a product that would benefit you, not just the bank for opening it for you. So I would actually highly recommend it from my end.
I know, Maureen had also mentioned that her comment about the joint accounts. she was sharing that it was an experience that she had. One of the things that, some of the things that you were reviewing there kind of hit home. One of the things that the late payments, when you were talking about that, and then you expounded a little bit later about, you know, you think you're paying your bill, but you don't realize it's taken 4 days for that bill to actually get paid. And next thing you know, you've got a late fee, or, you know, getting a notification that you haven't paid your bill or something. So that's always good to be aware of. And the reviewing of your statements and your receipts. I'm always appalled when I'm shopping and I see people that just don't bother with their receipts. And I'm going, but how, you know, how do you know? You know, because how many times have you shopped and you bought something that was on sale, as you said, just because it was on sale, and then you get home and discover they didn't give you the sale price, you know? So I think that that's great advice, is to make sure that you review those statements and receipts. And when you mentioned the cooling off period, I've even heard of people putting their credit cards in the freezer, so that they have to let the credit cards thaw out before putting them in ice and putting them in the freezer. So you have to let your card thaw out before you ever make your purchase. So then that makes you have to wait and determine.
That's a good one.
Yeah, and
I'll put my grandma's credit card in the freezer. She needs that.
By the time you get it out and get it thawed out, it's like, okay, well, maybe I didn't need that after all. But and as you referred to, the online shopping is just a killer, you know, and especially when it's just like Amazon, you don't even have to put your credit card in because they've already got your credit card. You know, it's like, oh, that looks
everything.
Let's order that. So those are some of the things that I can see that would be really wise for people, and reviewing your memberships and subscriptions and the things that you've signed up for that just do automatically come off your credit cards or your bank account. Unless you're checking your statement, sometimes you just don't know. And, you know, I'll see my Visa account and I'm thinking, why does it go up so high? And then I realize, well, it's the first of the month and you got Geek Squad, you got Amazon, you got Netflix, you got, you know, all those things that just keep coming on automatically, that all of a sudden you think, do I really need all of that? So Cheryl has raised a hand here as well.
Hi, Cheryl.
Oh, okay. Well, I just wondered if it's best to use your, say, your bank MasterCard instead of using a Canadian Tire card, credit card, or an Indigo credit card. Is it best to just use the one bank MasterCard?
If it's best to just use one type of credit card. So here are a few things that I would like to mention. So first, and when I was preparing for this, I was reading a lot of things about what would help you to build your credit score and how to use your cards properly to do that. So for example, one of the suggestions was that you don't always have to, like, don't think that you need to use like your full available balance and then kind of pay it off. That's actually not the best thing to do. It's best to use 30 to 50% of the available like limit for you and then pay it off. And for example, if you're getting a whole bunch of cards and you're using all of them, and I think, to be honest, from my personal experience, it's just more confusing for you because you would maybe not remember when is the deadline to pay that minimum balance. And maybe if you open a whole bunch, you kind of lose track of that, and then it kind of diminishes the whole point of wanting to build a credit score, because if you're not making your payments, if you're not on top of that you're not really helping yourself. And for me personally, I think that the best recommendation would be to have no more than maybe 2, tops maximum 3 big credit cards, because that way you're like more organized, you know exactly what you're doing, you know exactly when your date is, you know exactly what's going on there. And for me personally, to answer your question, I would rather use my bank credit card and just stick with that.
I think maybe an advice would be whichever credit card you have the lowest interest rates on, perhaps. And I think that's where we get caught, is, you know, you walk into a store or you're getting offers all the time, you know, to take every time you're check out at Walmart, you want to take a credit card, you know, and you know, they offer you these incentives, points or discounts or something. If you take our credit card, then you end up with a whole multitude of credit cards that cause you problems, you know. And it's, I think, you know, if you've got one credit card with a really low interest rate, probably best to use that, as you say, just to a certain percentage and then keep paying that one down.
Great point. And also to add to that, just keep in mind that not, of course, on top of the interest rate, a lot of bank, like credit cards offered by the banks, they would also have some type of yearly fee, or sometimes as a promotion, they would waive the first year fee, and maybe you forgot it was there in the first place, and then you get $120 or even more, sometimes like a yearly withdrawal, which you don't want. And of course, like I was talking before, it's always important to know fees and rewards, because usually that fee is there for a credit card because you're getting some travel points or points for, I don't know, groceries, gas. So just make sure that you know exactly what you're paying for. Maybe you don't even need those benefits to begin with. Like right now, who needs travel points, you know?
Exactly.
And so you don't.
Exactly. I like the ones that offer points, or you can convert it to cash value. So every now and then you can call up and say, okay, so could you please deposit my cash value? And I'm not traveling, or I'm not purchasing something. So it's, you know, those options are kind of nice. It helps to kind of give you a little bit of a bonus, I guess, on your credit card. Colleen, I think, has raised her hand here as well.
I just want to know, because I have a debit card and a credit card, and they charge you monthly fees, but I just don't know which one that charges you, because I always use my debit card, because I know my bank card always charge you fees if you use it too many times.
So here, like I was saying before, each account has a predetermined number of transactions. So for example, usually it's like the cheapest one has like 10 transactions, then 20 transactions a bit more. And if you pay like a certain fixed fee, sometimes it's like $15, $16, maybe for some banks a little bit less, then you get a limited number of transactions. And some people would say like, oh, I don't really want to pay $15 every month for my debit account. But then if you have a cheaper plan and then you're overusing it, you're actually getting charged a lot more. So here, I would suggest, if you don't want to pay a lot every month in your transactions, for example, get like 10 or 20 transaction account, which is a bit cheaper. And then that one you can use to, you know, pay your bills, to maybe make some e-transfers if you need to. But then you could use your credit card for you know, like purchases, like buying like different things, and then you also collect your points, and then you cover that amount before the deadline, and then you don't get charged interest for it, you know. But again, you have to be really careful with those things, or else you can do more worse than good. So with accounts, it's really important to know exactly how many transactions. If you have overdraft, to know exactly what type of overdraft you have. Are you going to get charged each time you use it, or is it a monthly fee? And same with your account, just to be mindful of that.
Yeah. The credit card that I have is a cash back one, that you get cash back when you shop every time. But sometimes they'll charge you if you have it, like, let's say, for example, I had charged for 15 cents.
That could be just for interest.
Because I used it like 7 times.
So you're saying your credit card charge was 15 cents and you used it 7 times?
Yeah, and it came up to $7 and some cents, if not more.
If you're seeing charges on your credit card, then it's most likely just interest, because usually credit cards don't have like a fixed monthly charge like a debit account would have. So usually if you're seeing that amount, then it just means you didn't pay it off before the predetermined date that you had to make your payments. So if you can.
Sorry, mine's it goes automatically payments.
Your credit card is automatically paid by your debit account.
It comes from out of my account. My credit card gets paid like that, you know. Like on
but is it set up? Sorry, didn't mean to interrupt you. But is it set up to cover the full amount or just the minimum? Because sometimes it could be both
whatever
ways.
I have on it. Just whatever I have on it, it comes out. Like for example, if I put Like, let's say if I spend $80, that's how much they take out. It's $80.
And you're still getting charges.
Yeah.
Huh. Might be a good idea to call the credit card holder and have them identify what the charges are for. And I think as Svetlana had alluded to, is you can talk to them and there may be options. They might be willing to waive fees for you.
Mhm.
And even with the debit card, they're paying me, they're taking $10.95 out of my account every month for that debit card.
Mhm.
That's the fee for using a certain number of transactions. So if you think that's maybe you don't need that many transactions, or maybe you want to change it again, speak to them, ask about different options. What are the fees for other things, and see what's best suited for you. And like I said, like you could even try to ask them if there's any promotion. Maybe you can threaten them a little that you would go to a different bank and see if they could give you an offer. Sometimes they would even give you, like, I've heard things like they would give a year for free as a part of some kind of promotion. So it's always good to ask and see what they can offer.
It'd be worth having the conversation with them. There's a question. Maureen was referring back to what we were discussing previously, and that she has her daughter's names on the accounts as well. So anybody else have anything that they would like to ask, either by Q&A or raising your hand for Svetlana before we kind of wrap things up here today? Maureen, I think, has raised her hand as well. Maureen, nice to see you here joining us again today, Maureen.
Hi. Yeah.
Hi,
I bank with a credit union, and I'm really happy with that. Do you have any comments about the advantages and disadvantages of a credit union versus a bank, or a bank versus a credit union?
Well, to be honest with you, I would love to give you suggestions for that, but I personally never dealt with credit unions. I only worked at the bank. So in my presentation, I was sharing the tips that I've learned from that. And as much as I want to, sound like I know everything and give you tips on everything, I wouldn't go into the things that I'm not experienced in. If there's anything that you want to ask related to, banks or personal banking, then I'm happy to answer.
Maureen, I might suggest, are you joining us for our presentation tomorrow with Service Credit Union being one of our sponsor of several of our presentations, that we have some representatives joining us for our presentation tomorrow. So if you have a question on that, if you're joining us, you might take an opportunity to ask.
Thanks.
Perfect timing.
All right. Anybody else have any further questions here? Some great information, and it's always fun to have everybody engaged in asking questions. And Carmen has raised a hand here. So, Carmen, would you like to go ahead?
Good morning. Thank you very much for the presentation, Svetlana and Colleen.
Thank you so much.
A lot of information. My question is, how do I register for tomorrow's presentation?
That's perfect.
Absolutely. I can certainly get you that link, Carmen. I will be mentioning it here at the end of the presentation, but I will. Do you want to message me your email address?
Sure.
And I will get you the link for you just to click on, but I will be sharing that as we close out here as well.
Do you want me to put it on the chat?
It's up to you if you feel that you would like to do that. And
yeah,
then,
I'll do that right away.
Okay, and then I'll follow up afterward.
It's wonderful that you're providing so many different workshops for all needs. Maybe I should attend too. Maybe someone else asks me what credit union.
Service Credit Union has been a longtime supporter of Kerby Centre, and so they're doing regular presentations for us as part of our financial management series. And tomorrow's is going to be on new ways of giving and enhancing your legacy to support your communities. So we're looking forward to having them join us. Thanks, Carmen. I'm just going to save this chat so that I'll follow up with you and get you that information. And so if there's no further questions here, Steve, I'm glad you got on. Thank you. He's good information presented. It's very helpful. And I don't see anything else coming through raised hands or Q&A. So I think that we can safely consider to be a wrap here today. Svetlana, thank you very much for such great information. You know, it's like I said, it's always something that's of major concern, particularly for seniors, and you know, as we get a little bit older, money's maybe a little tighter, and how do we budget and make the most of what we do have. So we appreciate your help. Wishing you all the best as well with Miss World. We really didn't get to chat about that too much. How exciting for you to be involved with that program. Do you want to mention a little something about it? Other
Sure.
things you might be doing with it?
Yeah, thank you so much, everyone, for your kind words, and thank you, Colleen. I'm very happy I was able to share this information. Yeah, just to like briefly mention about Miss World, I'm obviously extremely excited and grateful. This was my dream for many years, and I'm really looking forward to it. It's going to take place in Puerto Rico in December, so hopefully travel is you know, safer by then. Really excited. If you guys want to support me, of course, it would be telecasted as well. And I know pageantry maybe is not as, you know, popular in Canada as it is in some other countries, but yeah, of course, if you want to support me, that all of that information is available online, and closer to the date, there'll be more information how to watch it, where like which channels would stream it. So all of that would be available closer to the date. But thank you so much, everyone, for your kind words. And even you, Colleen, when I was presenting, I couldn't see anyone other than you. And you like smiling and nodding made me so like energetic to continue.
I know it's very disconcerting when you can't see your audience. So I'm always like to let you know that I'm listening and taking it all in. Great information. We wish you all the best with the pageant, and absolutely, please keep us informed and about what's coming up, and we'll keep our eye out for photos of you with a crown.
Thank you so much. Thank you. From my whole heart, I thank everyone for your attention, and I really hope this was useful for you.
Thank you very much, everyone, for joining us today, and we'll call this a wrap and look forward to seeing you again next time.